Build, Burn, Become. I'm Fred Moore, and we are doing another episode with Rob Ciano. He is a yoga instructor, and he's here today to talk about all kinds of nifty stuff that I was very surprised about. You know, when you and I talked, you kind of gave me a whole new outlook on yoga. So I'm looking forward to this conversation we're going to have. And before we start this conversation, I just want to let everybody know that you can use the code 3BPOD, and that is your discount code to work out at Beachbox. And Beachbox is cardio kickboxing with smart technology. We have a 25-minute cardio kickboxing routine that is high intensity. We get you into the orange zone, and we have really good music playing, and it's a lot of fun. Then we do a little strength training, and we get you out the door, and you get back to whatever it is that you got to do. So use the discount code 3BPOD and come in here and get your discount. It's $25 off your membership. It's worth it. Check us out. So, my man, I was talking to you on the phone, and we had a really good conversation. And it was like one of those things where it was like, you're going to have to say this all over again when we talk again, because it was just like I just wish we were actually having the podcast then, because you said all kinds of great stuff. So if you don't mind, I want to just ask you where originally you're from first.
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
I mean, this is really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to be here on this podcast. So I am originally from Hillsborough, New Jersey, which I always describe as being pretty much the belly button of New Jersey. It's more or less right in the middle. And I grew up in that area. I lived there for most of my life. I spent about a year and a half living in Los Angeles after college, and then I came back to New Jersey, and now I live in Asbury Park, where we are right now.
Okay. And you moved here, why?
To Asbury Park. I moved to Asbury Park to pursue a career in filmmaking. I am making a career change. I'm reinventing myself. I got my degree in filmmaking, but I didn't end up working in film after college. I did briefly when I was out in Los Angeles, but I wasn't really making enough money to keep living out there. It's very expensive to live out there. And came back here, worked in retail, worked in some unrelated fields. But eventually, I just had enough of not doing what I wanted to do with my life. I really had no interest in working in retail. I was working in a field that I was interested in. You know, I was working with wine most recently.
Wine.
And I love wine. It's, I think that's it's a very rich. I don't know. There's just a lot to it. There's a lot to know about it.
It's got a long history.
It's got a long history. It connects so many cultures. So many cultures have a history of wine. I'm interested in that, but I'm not interested in retail. Yeah. So I came to an issue, to a problem there. So what am I going to do with it? Right. And said, all right, you know what? It's time to go ahead and pursue film again for real with more knowledge. I didn't do well with it last time. But so far this time, I'm doing well. I just landed a job, working for a corporate video company, and like we were talking, before the podcast today about reinvention, and that's sort of what my current journey is, and I'm pleased to say and proud to say that I'm making some progress in that field. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and you said that you actually didn't do well at the first time, but now you're doing it again.
Correct. Yeah.
You're going for it again.
Going for it again.
Yeah, and that's what I like to hear, because you're not being beat down by your mistakes. You're learning from them.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's all about. Everybody's going to make mistakes, multitude of mistakes every day, and it's just a matter of how you actually look at the mistake. It's like, well, am I going to learn from it, or am I going to let that mistake push me down into the dirt and finish me off, and then resign myself to a career I don't want to be in.
Exactly.
Right.
Am I going to hang out in the dirt and swim around in there, or am I going to get back up and keep going?
Right. And when people make a mistake, sometimes that discourages them. So I'm glad to hear that you're not discouraged. And it seems like you're actually emboldened. Actually, you're actually more
totally
on doing something.
Totally.
So that's great. Yeah. And I really, I hope, I know you're just starting out, so you're going to be developing your film career. So I would like to hear more about it, maybe another episode or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And now, as far as being a yoga instructor, like I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, we were talking on the phone, and you said some interesting things about yoga that I never thought about before. And you gave me your general definition.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start off with that, because
Sure.
that's a good way to talk about yoga right from that definition.
Absolutely. So a lot of people, when they think about yoga, in our culture, they think of like somebody standing there in Warrior Two, or they're doing downward facing dog, and like they think of yoga and that's what they see in their mind's eye. They see somebody doing the physical postures of yoga, the asanas. Yoga actually has a much broader definition than that. There are multiple limbs of yoga. There's 8 limbs of yoga. But the actual general definition of the word is to yoke, to bring together, to unify. Now, in terms of the asana practice that we all know, yoga in downward facing dog, you can make that posture with your body. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing yoga. In fact, there is a yoga posture, Tadasana, mountain pose. You're more or less standing, just standing still, arms at your sides. You can stand still with your arms at your sides anytime you want.
Sure.
What makes that yoga is connecting the shape of your body and making sure that your mind is paying attention to that shape in your body, feeling where there's muscular engagement, paying attention to your breath. Yoga is, in terms of the asana practice, you're standing in Warrior Two. You're doing yoga when you're standing in that posture, but you're paying attention to how your muscles feel. You're paying attention to your breath. You're paying attention to the shape of your body. Your focus isn't on other things. It's not thinking about, oh, I wonder what time it is. I wonder if I got a text message. I wonder if that email came through.
Right.
I wonder what I'm doing after this class. You're doing yoga when you're in that physical space in the present moment. You can do that not just in Warrior Two posture or downward facing dog. You can do that. You can apply that anywhere you really want to, if you choose to. I like to talk about, I don't really teach in person anymore. I've really been focusing on building an online presence and making videos for people to do in their own home. I'm really focusing on, right now I just released a series of 5 videos called Yoga for the Absolute Beginner, which is going over the most basic postures. And just showing what they look like in the first couple of videos, and in the second 2 videos, putting some movement to it and teaching you how to go about, moving from one posture to another. I lost my train of thought.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, totally. Let me back up a little bit. Yeah. So what I was saying about applying yoga to other aspects in your life, you can take that broad definition of yoga and you can apply it to whatever you really want to apply it to.
Right.
You can apply it to having a conversation, for example. You and I are having a conversation right now. I would like to say that I'm kind of doing yoga as we're talking because I'm focused on our conversation.
Okay.
I feel myself sitting in this chair.
Right.
I feel my feet on the ground.
Okay.
And that gives me focus for the conversation that we're having because it's rooting me in this present moment.
Right.
It's rooting me here. I can't be anywhere else. My mind can't be anywhere else because it's focused on where I'm sitting and what I'm doing, which is sitting across from you at the table. We have our microphones, we have our headsets on, and we're having a conversation. So to me, that's in a way yoga. And I think that using that broad definition of yoga, you can help yourself in other situations in your life. You can really find a lot of focus in really any aspect that you want to. If you're at work, you're sitting at your desk, or maybe you don't sit at your desk at work. Maybe you're working out. Maybe you're doing bicep curls. If you are doing bicep curls and your mind is focused on how that curl is affecting your arm, making sure that you're hitting the right muscles that you want to hit, making sure that your form is correct.
Right.
You could look at that as yoga if you want to, if you choose to.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's sort of what my current message about yoga is that you can apply it wherever you want.
Yeah, that's terrific. You've heard of Arnold Schwarzenegger used to say it all the time, mind-muscle connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It sounds like the same thing. Yoga is much older, so we can't say Arnold Schwarzenegger really came up with that. He probably stole
Right.
it from yoga, but
He may have.
I mean, just that simple concept. Anybody who's ever been a meathead weightlifter who paid attention to that and got that mind-muscle connection concept, they all will say, that's a big game changer in their weightlifting career because when they get that mind-muscle connection, they see the muscle develop better
Yes.
because they are focused on what they're doing. Because I can remember so many times, working out in the gym or whatever, but I'm looking at something over here. I'm looking out the window. I'm thinking about when I want to go eat. And then I notice my workout sucks.
Yeah.
So then you got to try to, of course your mind escapes and you got to bring it back. But I totally get the concept that you're talking about here. It's very interesting. And I've taken yoga before and, it's pretty intense, especially like
Yes.
when you're a beginner.
Yes.
So, I was actually surprised when you told me on the phone that you only were a year and a half before you became an instructor.
Correct.
That's unbelievable. It seems to me that you must have an affinity for it. You definitely have the mind concept. So, but physically, you must be pretty good because to go right to instructor after only a short time like that.
Well, the thing with yoga is that there's a lot you see like on Instagram, online, on websites. You see these pictures of people doing yoga, and they're in Warrior 2, or they're in some crazy headstand, and they're in the middle of the forest, or they're in front of a waterfall, and it's a beautiful looking image, and it looks very intimidating. Yoga actually isn't very intimidating. People are afraid of yoga, the physical practice of yoga, because they think, I can't do yoga, I'm not flexible. I can't do yoga, I can't quiet my mind. I can't do yoga, I don't know anything about meditation. That's why you do yoga. You do yoga to get that flexibility.
Right.
You do yoga to find that focus. You do yoga to learn to quiet your mind. If you already knew how to do those things, you wouldn't really need the practice very much.
Right.
In terms of me, in that quick turnaround, I think that I had more of affinity for that mind-body connection. That I really latched on to that early on. And that really allowed me to sort of translate to being a teacher. I went to my instructor suggested that I go to teacher training, and I did. And it did happen pretty quickly. But I don't think that it's out of the question for many people. If they were interested in doing that path. I mean, if you take the time and you dedicate yourself to that practice and that repetition, and just really not being afraid to explore the mental aspects of it as well. I don't think it's out of the question for somebody to pursue that, in a time frame like I did.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, the mental aspect of it was there from the beginning for you. Did it seem like you were really struggling to find that?
It did at the beginning, especially because I found yoga at a time when my mind was all over the place.
Okay.
I was a very unfocused person, especially because I started it shortly after I came back from California. And at that time, I was feeling very defeated. I was feeling, very unmotivated. I felt very depressed about myself, the fact that I looked at going and coming back from California as a failure. At that time, I looked at that as a failure, and I was very discouraged. And so when I went into my first yoga class, I'm thinking, I can't even do a forward fold. I can't even focus my mind. I'm thinking about all these different things, but if you make it a regular practice, those things, one thing we were talking about on the phone, we came up with meditation.
Yeah.
And that came up in our phone conversation. Right. And the thing that people misunderstand about meditation is that it's not about turning your mind off. It's not about not having thoughts. You can have as many thoughts as you want to in meditation. Meditation is about learning to watch those thoughts go on by you without attaching to them, without judging them. So when that started happening to me in my yoga classes after I had my regular practice going on, I realized, that's when I started connecting to that mind-body connection, because I realized, okay, well, I'm in this pose and I'm thinking about this thing, but I don't have to actually pay attention to that thought. I can choose to turn my focus back into my body. I can choose to pay attention to the muscles that I'm feeling or my feet in the ground instead of that thought that I know is distracting me.
Okay, so I've tried meditating before, and I've done yoga, and I mountain bike. When I mountain bike, that's the best time for me because I notice that my mind is operating on that level.
Yes.
Sometimes I feel like I'm not thinking about anything, but then the thoughts come and they go. But for somebody that may not quite understand what we're talking about here, what happens when the thought comes in and then it starts to leave and you start to turn your attention back? Does the thought literally disappear, or does it hover somewhere and you have to just learn to kind of, it's just this thing here? Like, how does it really look inside the head?
Yeah, I kind of envision it for myself as if there's a cloud of smoke in front of me that I just wave my hand and it dissipates.
Okay.
I think that's the metaphor that I actually used in classes oftentimes. Like, if you have a thought, just wave it away and let it float away like smoke.
Yeah.
It certainly could linger, and there are times when it's difficult to turn off a thought. I'm not an expert, you know. I'm not a guru. I'm not floating around, you know, sitting in meditation or anything like that. So I'm human. We're all human. These thoughts do come up.
Right.
Meditation is partly about, you know, understanding that thoughts will come up, and that's okay. You're not doing anything wrong if they come up.
Right.
You know, but if you have that practice of not paying attention to them, you'll find that it's easier for you to let go, to let them dissipate.
Right.
If you want to, and that in doing that, you're able to bring your focus back to where it needs to be, so you can accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
Sure. Okay.
In a yoga class, that means, you know, doing your best expression of the pose. Outside of the yoga class, it could mean whatever it is you're doing. You know, again going back to lifting, you know, or going back to you know, if you're able to let those thoughts go away, you are able to focus and make sure you're doing your form properly. You're mountain biking. If you're able to let those thoughts go away, you're able to really pay, and you need to pay attention when you're mountain biking. You need to make sure you're not making a wrong turn, you're not turning your wheel funny, you're not going to topple over, you're not going to fall sideways. So there's a lot of mental energy going on there. It makes sense that you'd be able to find a really nice place of flow there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But if it comes up, you know, it's really just about not fighting yourself over it. It's just about like saying like, okay, well, I see it, you know, I see there's a thought there. I'm just like, I'm not focused on that right now. I'm focused on my bike.
Yeah.
I'm focused on this wheel, on this pedal, on this ground, you know?
Yep.
And that's meditation.
That's awesome, because I've tried to actually meditate sitting on a couch or on the floor. I've actually went into a float pod.
Yeah.
Pretty intense and very hard to just lay there quietly. And I'm happy to know that at least when I mountain bike, I'm doing something like that. You know?
Yeah.
Because I feel mentally like refreshed when I get done. It's just an hour ride, and it's like it just for the rest of the week I could be flying because of that. Just because it's just like a reset for the brain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's another thing too, is like, you know, if you were talking about, you know, seated meditation, you found it hard to, you know, sort of quiet your mind. Another part of it too is like not being angry with yourself if you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's a practice. I mean, that's the whole thing, is like you're learning to do this. You need to not be, you know, you need to not beat yourself up if you don't do it properly the very first time you try it. You try it again.
Yeah, right.
You know, you're not going to lift 150 pounds right off the bat. You're gonna lift 30, and then you're gonna lift 40. You know, it's like you build up to it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with yoga. It's the same thing with you know, meditation.
Yeah, gotcha.
You know, if it's something you're interested in doing. You know, not everybody's, it doesn't call to everybody. Not everybody needs it, but it does call to a lot of people.
Now, for a person who maybe isn't, you know, that want take it to that intense level, yoga is also good for stretching.
Yes.
And also strength, right?
Absolutely.
It's a different kind of strength.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's definitely good for strength. It's definitely good for flexibility. And you'd be surprised, because a lot of people feel like yoga is sort of on the tamer end of what fitness can be.
Yeah, yeah.
And it can be on the tamer end if you want it to be. Right. You're not going to be, you know, you're not necessarily going to incorporate weightlifting into your yoga routine, you know, as far as like the traditional asana practice goes. But it can be very physically demanding. I feel like I have a very strong leg practice. I feel like I have very strong legs just from doing yoga. And, I went to the gym one day and I was doing some leg exercises in the gym. And, I had never really been to the gym before, and not to say that I was like, doing a whole ton of crazy leg stuff, but, I was with someone who knew something about fitness and they started me off at a relatively, reasonable level, and they said, "Oh, you can do more." Okay, great. Your yoga practice can be very physically intense if you want it to be. It's a very fluid practice. You can make it be what you want it to be. I mean, there's yogis out there who can, just put their hands on the floor and press themselves up into a handstand using just their arms, using just their core.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
It's intense.
Yeah, right.
That's difficult to do. So yeah, your yoga practice absolutely can be very physically demanding.
Yeah, so it's like anything in life, really. It's there's a spectrum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
That's pretty amazing. And the yoga classes that I have taken, I'm the type of guy where like I see somebody doing it to the extreme. I think I could do it too.
Yes.
And I have kind of hurt myself doing yoga, so I know you have to respect it. I mean, some of the moves and everything, if you're not flexible enough and you haven't done it before, it's like anything else. Like I'm not going to ask a person to drive a 100-pound dumbbell up over their head if they never even lifted a 20-pound dumbbell.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then there I am thinking I could do what this person's doing. The last yoga class was great for me because they actually brought me those blocks.
Great, yeah.
To help me.
Very helpful.
And then when I started using the blocks, it really made me realize, like, oh, I have a long way to go here because everybody else is doing it without the blocks, and I need this. Yeah, and with all the exercise that I do, mostly like weightlifting and kickboxing, everything, I'm so tight all the time. So
yes.
I could see where yoga's got that full ride of different things that it can provide for your body. And you say your legs are strong, because you're in those Warrior 2 pose, for instance. It's an iso hold. You're basically contracting that muscle, and you could actually develop strength that way.
Yes, definitely. And going back to what you were just saying about being in the class and you're using blocks and nobody else is using blocks. I mean, that's another place where yoga is like really a good yoga. Just the practice for yoga is a good teacher.
Right.
Because it's a reminder, you are new to yoga, so you were using blocks in your class when nobody else was using blocks in their class.
I'm playing with blocks.
Yeah. So you're playing with blocks. But it's like the thing with yoga is like, okay, like who cares,
Right.
They're doing yoga, you're doing yoga. The fact that you're using blocks doesn't make your yoga any less than their yoga.
Right.
You're doing the same practice. It's just that you are newer to it. Or even if you've been doing it forever. There was this one woman who used to come to my classes when I used to teach in-person classes, and she had been doing yoga for years, but her body just didn't allow her to really do certain poses, even after all that time.
Right.
So so she would do adjustments, or she would use blocks here or whatever, and that's completely fine. Yoga is about not judging yourself for what you can and can't do. And it's about not comparing yourself to what other people can and can't do. You're each doing your own thing. You have your own yoga practice. And that's why it's called a practice, because you're working toward a fuller expression, or you're practicing what you are able to do to your limit,
right,
or
to potential,
before you hurt yourself. You
right.
don't want to overdo it. You don't want
right.
to try and match somebody else's pose if they're going super deep and you've never been
right.
able to do that. Like that's not helpful. That doesn't do anything.
That's like
you.
walking into the gym and you see a guy squatting 350 and I'm going to do that right now.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't work.
Yeah, you're going to kill yourself.
Flatten yourself. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so that's amazing. I love that. Now, you mentioned earlier, if we could backtrack, you mentioned that you moved from California. That I guess that's where you tried to get going with your filmmaking, right?
Yes, after I got my degree in filmmaking, and then I moved out to Los Angeles, where I was a new college grad with no experience, going up against people with 20 years of experience.
Oh my God.
Didn't happen.
Yeah.
But then I came back.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So do you anticipate in the future, moving back out there?
Yeah, it's a thought.
Yeah.
It's a thought, but I have been thinking. I don't know if it will work, but I'm gonna try and make my film career here in New Jersey or in New York.
Yeah.
New York is obviously very big for TV and film.
Right.
But I just really like New Jersey. I don't think there's any harm in trying to make it happen.
What about Canada, though? Because
it does.
They're making a lot of things up in Canada because it's cheaper, right?
It is cheaper to shoot in Canada, and I had a psychic tell me I'd live in Canada for 3 years. I don't know if I believe that. It hasn't happened yet, and that was a long time ago. So it could have been bubkiss, but I'd be open to it.
Yeah, maybe like Toronto or something like that. I don't know where are they doing all the filming in Canada?
Yeah,
just
I don't even know.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
It's just weird.
Up there somewhere. Yeah.
Well, that's
Just
good.
Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now, I always like to ask people like their routines and things like that. You seem like you have a lot going on. So do you have like a daily routine that keeps you grounded, keeps you able to get all of those tentacles you have out there and keep them wrapped around the things that you're working on?
Definitely. Absolutely. And in fact, yes. So I do have a yoga practice that I do every morning. It's about a 15-minute routine. And it's mostly about stretching out my body, getting ready for the day, as well as some strength. And I try and adjust it daily so I'm not like, doing hardcore on my legs every day. Because I do those Warrior 2 postures, the way that I do them, I really get a lot of muscular engagement. So I don't want to overdo that every single day. I try and mix it up a little bit.
Right.
So I do my yoga routine. I try and sit in meditation for a couple of minutes.
Do you do that after your yoga?
After the yoga, yes.
Okay. Is there a reason why you do it after the yoga and not before?
Yes, actually, because the physical postures of yoga, one of their uses is actually to ready the body for seated meditation.
Okay.
If you're up and doing your thing during the day, and you try and sit down, you might find that you're a little fidgety. But if you take some time to do a yoga practice, stretch yourself out, you can sit much more comfortably, and you can find that place of comfort quicker than if you were just up and about.
Okay, yeah, so two things happen. One, you're focusing during the yoga, so that's sort of like a warm up for focusing.
Absolutely.
And then
yes.
you're kind of using your body, you're quieting the energy in your body down.
Yes.
By stretching and posing, so it kind of relaxes you afterwards. And everything. So that makes total sense. That's why I asked. It seemed to make sense to do it after. Because I always think of meditation as like, okay, I'm going to do that first, and then I'm going to have breakfast, and then. But now that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. So it's very good to do that after a yoga practice, or just after. If you don't have time to do a yoga practice, you can just do a couple of stretches. Just anything simple, just to let the body know, like, okay, we're gonna prepare to sit now.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's part of that's what I do for yoga every day. Is I do that little warm up, and then I do my seated meditation.
And then what do you do next? You eat?
I will eat, and either during or after eating, I'll sort of just make a list for the day.
You do?
And start to
actually write a list, or you do it on your phone?
No, I write a list.
Okay.
Because I like the visceral feeling of a pen on paper,
right.
And it's much more satisfying to cross things off a piece of paper than to click a checkbox on the phone.
Yes.
So yeah, I have a couple of different projects that I'm working on right now, so I will try and do one thing for each of them, every day.
Okay, so it's just for your projects, or do you also do the laundry, food shopping, the dog?
If those things need to be done, they're on the list.
Okay,
yes.
So it could be anything.
Yeah,
right.
it can be anything.
And you do that every day?
Pretty much every day, unless.
And what do you do with the list when you're done?
Oh, just get rid of it.
You don't save it?
No.
Little record of your list making.
Sometimes if I'm feeling a little lazy, it'll stay on my desk until the next day or a couple of days. But usually I kind of day is done. I've accomplished what I needed to. It probably would be a good idea to sort of keep track of those things, though. It's not.
I don't know.
I had never really thought of it before, so
like when you're old and your grandkids, look, I'm going to show you what I have here. See, on this day I did the laundry, and this day,
Yes.
they'll be like, Grandpa's crazy over here. What's going on?
Yeah. No, I mean, I hadn't really thought of that before. Maybe I will. Maybe I will hold on to my list. I mean, it's even good just to track for yourself. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
this is all that I accomplished this week. That's
Right.
not a bad idea.
Yeah.
You know, it's very motivating.
Yeah. And then after you make your list, you set out on your day. Is that what happens next?
I learned something interesting recently, which is that for a lot of people, I don't know if this is a blanket statement for everyone, but most people are their most productive within 2 hours of waking up.
I believe that. That's me all the way.
Yeah, yeah. So like I don't want to waste too much time in the morning. You know, if I have important things I want to get done, I want to do them.
Yeah.
And maybe even take a nap and get a little bit of a rest, and then have another 2 hours
Yeah.
of really good,
Right.
really good intense productivity.
Yeah, I believe in that. In fact, I started waking up earlier because it just seemed to make more sense, at least with my personality. When I get up at like 4 in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
I picture myself, I'm on top of the mountain, and everybody and everything is underneath me. I'm
Yeah.
so ahead of the game. But I just get that quiet moment in the morning where I could focus, I could take my time, but then I just get going with all my workouts and everything. And it's funny when at the firehouse, the joke with me is like, I'm pretty good in the morning, like with the one-liners, right? The guys are, it's like piranhas, right?
Yeah,
Every time.
yeah.
And they're all zinging each other. So I come right back at them. I got things to say. But as we get closer to lunchtime, I start falling apart. My one-liners don't make sense, and they're like, "What? What are you?" And I'm like, it's after 10 o'clock in the morning. You lost me. I'm done. I'm fried. And
Yeah.
then I always tell everybody, don't even bother me at 3 o'clock. I'm
Yeah.
just like, blah, nothing left up here.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So you tackle a lot of your bigger project stuff, and then sort of as the day goes, you'll pick off the littler things. Is that kind of what happens?
Yeah, I like to sort of gain some mental momentum by doing the larger projects or the more important things earlier on, and that way, I know that I have something that major that I've already accomplished for the day, and it gives me a little bit of motivation to doing some of those other things, and I might even start preparing for the next day.
Right.
Or preparing for things that aren't as immediate of concerns, but I like to really be productive in the morning productivity, and then like afternoon into later on in the day is still productivity, but a different kind, where I'm sort of doing more preparation, or where I'm doing some of those smaller things that I know aren't going to take up as much time. I can do a couple of them at once.
Right. Very good.
Yeah. And that's all going back to the yoga. It's going back to the focus.
So that's where you learned it from
Yeah.
doing the yoga. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's my message has always been fitness. Take care of your body, but your mind is very important. And with yoga and a good discipline with some type of fitness program, you can really sharpen your mind. But then once your mind is in the right place, you focus your mind, and your body will follow. So a big believer, and I understand, where it's not just a side thing. Like, you don't just go and do yoga just to go stretch. You're really doing something wholesome for your mind, your body, your spirit, and it can translate to all other facets of your life.
Yeah.
And this could be, and since yoga transcends everything, it appears, because it's
it can.
Actually, what you said was to bring together unification of mind and body.
Yes.
Right? That's what you said on the phone.
Yes.
That happens, and you could apply that anywhere in life. So
Yeah.
I love it. It's really great. And I have been thinking about going back to taking some yoga classes, and this inspires me to actually go ahead and do that.
Yeah, you should.
We have
Yeah.
one, we have a yoga place right next to us. So
That's
They're
very
just-
convenient.
yeah, 2 stores over. Maybe you could you'll be in there one day, and I'll see you there.
I might be. I
Yeah.
might be in there, doing a class. I might be in there teaching
Right.
a class. Who knows?
Yeah, but now you're not teaching right now. Actually, physically, you're doing it on Facebook, right?
Yeah, I'm doing that on Facebook. I have a Facebook page.
What's your Facebook page?
So it's Rob Ciano Yoga. It's Ciano. It's like piano, but with a C.
Right.
Rob Ciano Yoga, and that's my Facebook page. I will be creating an Instagram page eventually, but right now what I've been doing on the Facebook page is I have a daily inspirational quote, and then a few times I do one blog entry a week, and I've also been putting up some videos. So as I said earlier, I have my Yoga for Absolute Beginners video series, and those videos have been going up on the Facebook page more recently, and I have a few other classes that I'm going to be putting up soon. I'll have a class on hip openers. I'll have a class on shoulder openers, just different places, different places in the body. I also want to do a series specifically for like post-activity yoga. For example, my buddy is a cyclist, and he's like, wow, Rob, I'd really like to, it'd be really cool if you did a class about, warming down after a long bike ride. So I'd like to do a series of things like that, like, all right, yoga for after a bike, yoga for after a run, yoga for after a workout routine, things like that is kind of my next animal to tackle.
Oh, I like that. Well, I'm definitely going to be following you on Facebook.
Cool.
You better accept my request.
I will. I will.
Yeah, because I want to see the hip opener thing. I've been working on my hip mobility lately.
Yes.
And because I need it. And and I told you I mountain bike, so yeah, definitely want to see that. And is there anything else? Instagram, Twitter, anything?
Instagram, not yet. Twitter, I don't have. Instagram, I'm preparing.
Okay.
Because I don't have enough images for an Instagram yet.
Oh, you want to?
Yeah, you can't
flood the market with your
Yeah.
Not the way I'm doing it. Yeah, just one photo at a time.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it. Yeah. All right. So that's your Facebook stuff. It's great. I'm really excited that you came. This was a good interview, and
yeah, this was great.
Yeah, I learned a lot from you, and everybody. Rob Ciano is a yoga instructor. So if you want to learn some basic stuff, or stick with him for a while and check him out, I think you're going to be happy with what he has to offer, and follow him and check him out. So. Thanks for coming, and thank you everybody for listening. Tune in next time, and we'll see you. Bye.
See you next time.